Chapter 5 Encounter, Entrapment, Experience. When summoned to the ship's control room, D.C.C groaned at the sight of the Firebird. Not only was the starship still intact after a barrage of asteroids, its crew seemed to have survived as well. Annoyed with the revelation, he continued sharpening his tail blade as he prepared himself to hear an onslaught of his boss's smug remarks.
Well, look what we have here. It seems your bet that our visitor didn't survive was false.
The dwarf frog croaked, stroking his beard as he stood on the ship's controls.
I'll be having my 2,000 credits back, if you will.
He gave a smug smile, which he would give whenever anything was in his favor. D.C. scowled and wished he could scrape his boss's face every time he made that vile expression. Immediately, the lanky Scorco went to the ship's pilot and ordered, "Aim the cannons on that white ship. I want nothing but a crater."
"Yes, sir,"
the bunny pilot replied and readied the cannons.
"What? What are you doing?"
the dwarf frog exclaimed.
"Ignore that order."
Yes, sir,"
the pilot replied to their boss.
"Ignore Fazboa's orders and proceed with the firing." "I veto that order."
Fazboa waddled over on the ship to the bunny pilot.
"You'll be destroying that ship."
"That's the plan," D.C. retorted. "And it would make me feel better losing 2,000 credits.
"So is that lashing, losing your prize?"
Fazboa asked. "And stopping those Cergons looting that ship. I don't want to risk them finding something that can be used against us."
"Then we don't need to destroy it,"
Fazboa exclaimed.
"This ship is different compared to the others that crashed here."
"How is one of the worst ships so valuable? If you're thinking of polishing it and auctioning it off, it'd be a waste of money and our PR would tank if we try," D.C. shot back. "But I see an opportunity with those visitors."
"What are you on about, you laboon?"
Fazboa snapped.
"And since when did you care about my company's reputation?"
"Since I was assigned here," D.C. flatly stated, though he was more concerned about his reputation instead. Fazboa narrowed his 4 eyes and grumbled to the pilot.
"Activate the autopilot. Me and my assistant want a heart-to-heart,"
he said sarcastically. But the pilot bunny opened their mouth for rebuttal.
"I don't want to hear your opinion. Do as I say."
Without a word, the bunny pilot shrugged, switched on the ship's autopilot, and headed out the door. It was now D.C. and his boss. The two stared at each other for nearly a minute, attempting to think of a sly remark before they divulged into their argument. D.C. broke the silence. "So what? You wanted to have a heart-to-heart, eh?"
"Brain to brain, you idiot!"
Fazboa jabbed his finger to the side of his forehead.
"Which is exactly what you're lacking. Jumping straight into obliterating something so valuable was an idiotic move."
"So is preserving a sorry excuse of a ship," D.C. fired back. "Like that's ever going to sell."
"Doesn't mean we have to destroy it,"
Fazboa retorted.
"There is value in that ancient ship."
"Value? Really? As if anybody wants to buy a Gyrel-class starship," D.C. scoffed. "That thing was featured on the top 5 worst starships."
"That was one of many websites."
20 times on each website. In 3rd place. Should I mention the casualty rates?
"Regardless,"
the dwarf frog raised his voice.
"whether the Gyrel class is a death trap or not, it's still valuable for its connection to the Ferocians. I assure you this will make our company richer."
D.C. rolled his eyes. "I highly doubt that." Fazboa harumphed.
"Fine, if that's how you feel. Now how about you fess up about your ridiculous idea?"
Fazboa mocked. "Well, mine isn't as stupid as yours. In fact, it would get more in favor of the Dracul Empire if we bring those visitors to the Emperor." The old toad was perplexed by D.C.'s statement and had his obsession with the Firebird off his mind.
"What about them?"
Fazboa narrowed 4 eyes at the lanky Scorco. "Think about it. Have you ever seen anything like those 3 before?"
"No. Why?"
In the middle of his question, something clicked. Phasboa was slighted by the notion that his idea was far-fetched.
What value do you see in them?
It's less about them being valuable, and more about their species as a whole. Just having those three could gauge their overall species strengths and weaknesses. Desniro mused on with the concept. It'd be good to use their planet for resources as well.
Oh, really? After we lobbed asteroids at them? You think they're just going to forget that and line up to join?
The dwarf frog challenged.
We made our point loud and clear. Whether they saw our automated message or not, they sure as hell won't be thinking twice joining the Dracula Empire now.
Desniro shrugged in response. I didn't say they joined the Dracula Empire, just as long as they're open to other options. A grumble left Phasboa with the half-hearted excuse. Of course, you and your queen would be interested. She's not my queen, Desniro snapped, Phasboa taken aback by the abrupt reply. He then pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a sigh. All I'm saying, it would be more useful for the Empire to have another planet under his rule than some antiquated, busted-up ship. Only a grunt was heard of the toad, and after a little time, he eventually responded properly. So you want them alive? No shit! A small slip shortly corrected, with only bitterness leaving the tall individual, and a smirk planting itself on Phasboa. A simple, yes, left Desniro. Then how about a wager? Phasboa asked. Double or nothing. Another wager? Really? Desniro raised an eyebrow, but was curious about their new wager. Double or nothing? Double or nothing, replied Phasboa. Desniro knew he had to join in, which meant he could keep his 2,000 credits as well. All right, what are you wagering this time? If my idea with that starship bears more fruit than your hypothetical expanse of the Empire, quit working for your queen, and you work under me full-time. Follow my order to the letter from there on. An eyebrow was raised at this challenge, and shortly Desniro set his terms. And if my idea for expansion comes to fruition, you dismantle the D.C.C, giving us full access to its resources. Oh, and double the payment as well. The four-eyed toad was hesitant at first, pondering the stakes, but soon stuck out a hand. Desniro firmly took his boss's hand, and they were both confident, and shook on their weighty bargain. It's a deal, they both chanted in unison. The D.C.C's ship loomed overhead. Gaia's dunes swirled around the Firebird, creating a mini dust storm around the area. The Cergons and their beasts were left staggered. The Night Witch shared the same sentiment, but kept it to herself. She didn't want to ruin her elegant perception. The fact the same people who knocked her ship down to this planet wasn't something she found as an ideal savior. You think they're here for us? Alana squinted and had her arms up to block gusts of sand. 'Cause that's some terrible timing on their part. You should hold off your excitement, Miss Garcia, Mino retorted. From where we stand, we may have just met our assailants. Assailants? What do you mean by that? Alana asked. But the two were interrupted. The ship's cannons fired terrifying bolts of rays, a massive reaction of a fiery explosion. The Cergons and their Quinsar tigers flew high from the eruption, flopping hard on the sand. The shower of lasers resumed on the rest of the natives as they desperately tried to make a run for it. Oros trembled in fear, backed away, and tripped on the snoring Emmy. Yuka was busy trying to quell his beast before it made a break for it. Alana's jaw hung and was left by the massacre. Mino stood in disgust. She tightened her grip around her umbrella's handle. I think that answers our question. She finished, but soon found Alana making a mad dash to the Cergons. Miss Garcia? Where are you going? You'll get killed! They need help! Alana exclaimed. I can't just stand here and do nothing! That explosion could have killed them! You can't heal the dead! Maybe some, but not all! Alana countered, continuing her pursuit after the injured Cergons. Mino wanted to give chase. The thought of seeing her stowaway harmed wasn't one of the list of things she wanted on her trip, but was immediately stopped when Emmy was finally awake. She would have been glad to have some assistance from her bodyguard, but her confidence went down the drain as Emmy held Oros from his tail.
Good grief, Emmy, what are you doing?
Oros was hung upside down, swaying back and forth as he desperately reached for his dagger on the ground.
I want to teach this brat a lesson for waking me up.
Let go of me, you big-nosed oaf!
Spouted the bratty Cergon.
Put him down, Emmy. He's just a kid,
Mino said.
I'm not a kid, you long-nosed freak!
Scolded Oros, but the two simply ignored his comment.
Not until he learns his mistake. He can learn from his mistakes later, but right now we have more pressing matters.
She revealed to Emmy the D.C.C's ship and the attack on the other Cergons.
Now hurry up, drop the child. We don't want the other Cergons to think, "Let my brother go!"
shouted Yuka. His voice dripped with venom. He trained his rifle at both Emmy and Mino, further illustrating his intentions.
Oh dear,
groaned Mino. She took a deep breath to attempt to reclaim the initiative in response.
That's what I'm trying to get her to do! Then have her do it now!
Yuka's tone grew more aggressive, but his attention shifted when the D.C.C's ship roared. The onslaught from the D.C.C ship above met its conclusion, and a tractor beam under its belly took its place. It captured the Firebird, Mino, Emmy, and Oros as they were dragged up into the air. They all struggled to free themselves from the tractor beam's hold, wailing in desperation as they flailed helplessly in the air. Mino struggled to summon her shadow servants to cling to her and the others, but they were out of reach as the three continued their accession.
Oros!
Yuka screamed as he jumped down from his beast as he ran towards the tractor beam and began to fire upon the ship in hopes of freeing his younger brother, before his siblings ran in and prevented him from getting close to the tractor beam. He struggled, demanding to be released, but it was in vain as his siblings reluctantly refused.
Avenge me!
Oros echoed as he and the rest were dragged into the D.C.C's ship. Alana helplessly watched the Firebird, and the rest were trapped under the D.C.C's tractor beam. They were then swallowed whole by the cubicle ship, like a whale devouring krill in the ocean. The ship's aperture doors sealed under its belly and flew away from the wreckage. The harsh winds died down, and the sands settled back on the dunes. The wasteland was dead silent, and Alana was on her own. Worse, she wasn't just the only human on an alien planet. She was the only human on the other side of the galaxy. Still, she was at least accompanied by the Cergons. Most of the Draconic pack were severely injured and could barely stand on their own feet after a brutal onslaught. Alana pitied the Cergons. They were in an unfair fight against a giant ship in the air. A part of her felt responsible for causing such a mess and thought to help the Cergons. Despite moments before they held her and the others at gunpoint and knife point, it didn't matter. She's a doctor, for God's sake. Well, was a doctor. She pulled out a miniature capsule from her pocket, donning a red band and white cross, and pressed down on the button. In a matter of seconds, the capsule expanded, transforming into a full medic kit. She ran over to the nearest injured Cergon, one of which was a yellow-scaled lizard. He groaned in pain from the explosion and had his leg caught under an unconscious pink-furred beast's body. Excuse me, sir," she asked and waved her hand to get his attention. His eyes slowly opened and gave a wary look. The yellow Cergon struggled to speak and coughed bright pink blood. You, he began. "I'm here to help. Just sit back and I'll get you out of that." Alana was lost for words. She didn't know what she was to describe the pink-furred animal. All she could discern from its features were tentacles hung from its face, a combination of a bear and an octopus. It was as if a child thought to combine two animals to draw, or a Ferocian wanting to win the most incomprehensibly terrifying forms they can shapeshift into, or a combination of both. Whatever this thing is. She placed the medical kit to the side and began to examine the beast if it was breathing. It was hard to tell. Even when she was a professional doctor and a veterinarian, it was beyond her expertises due to it being, well, an alien, really. The best Alana could do was to find its mouth and place her hand under it to see if it was breathing. "Damn," muttered Alana, concluding that the lack of breathing was a concrete confirmation. The animal was dead. Without hesitation, she quickly pushed the pink beast, which was much tougher than she'd imagined. She barely had the corpse off of the ground, but there was room for the yellow Cergon to free his leg. Alana gasped. She lost her grip and felt her arms ache after doing the heavy lifting. "There we go," she panted and smiled at her yellow-scaled patient. "I told you I'm here to help." The young woman examined her patient from head to toe. Gashed wounds were spread across his body and were cauterized from the heat of the lasers, as pink blood seeped out of his yellow scales. Alana opened the medical kit and began to tend the wounds of the Cergon. She gently wrapped all around the scars, all the while he seethed in pain. It took time, but eventually she finished her procedure. "You think you can walk?" she asked, and immediately received a slow nod from her patient. The young woman held him from the waist up, lifting him from the ground, and got him onto his feet. He winced from all the strength he had to muster, and Alana needed to be quick to find a comfortable spot to lay her patient down. Her best option was to find more of the Cergons. Luckily for Alana, she found a couple in better condition, yet were in a heated argument with each other. "Yuka, we can't go after them," a female Cergon pleaded with their head pack member. "Once one of our people heads to the D.C.C's base, they're as good as dead." "And so will Oros," Yuka argued back. "Then we should head back to the settlement," another Cergon suggested. "We can't accomplish anything like this. We need a plan." "But we don't have time," said Yuka, his voice progressively becoming more desperate. "He'll get killed before he could utter a remark." "Oros is an idiot, but he's not that much of an idiot," the female Cergon replied. "For all we know, maybe he has a chance of reuniting with our brother and sisters." "That's assuming they're still alive." Yuka trailed off. His siblings, too, weren't sure how to reply to his dark comment. "They're right, you know? You guys seemed under-equipped to give chase," Alana pipped, and was given a confused look from the yellow Cergon. "Besides, your friends need to be patched up after that laser attack." Yuka sighed and knew she was right. You're right. It would be stupid if we did run in now." He trailed off and stood back onto his feet, and his confidence was regained. "Right. We'll head back to the camp and plan our attack from there. Gather up all the injured and tend to their wounds before we go." Without any hesitation, his siblings agreed and quickly ran to find wounded Cergons. "Thank you, Rosa," said Yuka. His tone was melancholic, yet sweet. He pulled out what looked like a small piece that shimmered under the moonlights. It was a small rose trinket. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Alana was left dumbfounded by the sudden romantic attitude that she was receiving. Even her yellow-scaled patient could only shrug from the sudden character shift. My name isn't Rosa, it's Alana," she clarified. "Alana? Since when do you go by that?" Yuka snapped out of his trance and perked when he realized who the voice was. He turned on his heel and found Alana with the yellow-scaled Cergon right by her side. Immediately, he pulled out his rifle and aimed directly at the young woman. What are you doing with Ullard?" Alana began to sweat. Held at gunpoint was one of the many things she hated when having a conversation with anyone. She stammered an answer before Yuka could pull the trigger. "Helping out! He was hit by those lasers as well, and was caught under your guys' animals. I couldn't just stand aside and let him suffer." "How do I know you're not lying?" Yuka shouted. "You should not test my patience when my brother was taken away from me because of you damn Outworlders." Alana's body stiffened. She was in a very awkward position. While of course it is true that someone did recently lose his younger brother to a massive flying cube, it didn't quell her nerves. There was a chance she would be shot if she gave the wrong answer. "Yuka, please." The Cergon, Ullard, began weakly as he stepped forward. "Alana freed me from a dead Quensar tiger and tended my wounds. Please, let her help our brothers and sisters," he replied, but immediately coughed again from his injury. "The Cergon continued giving an unassured glare at Alana, but they all looked back to Ullard. Seems like he managed to somewhat convince them. Yuka weighed his options, if he had any. The situation was grim with his people on the ground, some injured from the attack. Yuka furrowed his brow and spoke with a distrustful tone. If that is the case, Ullard, Alana will help us with the injured back at the settlement. Outside of that, she will be held with suspicion. Alana gulped. The threat made her much more uncomfortable around the draconic pack. On one hand, she wasn't the Firebird's prisoner anymore. On the other hand, she was now the Cergon's prisoner.